You're having a good time on the couch with your friends. You're having a good time in the bed alone. You're having a good time watching TV. Let us ruin your day. Yay!
Welcome to Now It's Ruined, the podcast for people who hate enjoying things. I'm Kate Bridle.
And I'm Larkin Harrington.
And today we get to talk about fashion, which I'm really excited about because there is so much there. And we haven't really touched on fashion or beauty since our second episode, which was about false eyelashes. I'm extra excited because we have an awesome new guest with us today. Joining us to talk about fashion is an amazing creator who I ran across on Instagram, and I instantly knew that I had to reach out. His name is KP Deluxe. He is the founder of Styled Over Substance and the SOS Network. He is a fashion enthusiast who uncovers fashion lore while balancing a delicate brain rot to intellect ratio, all to make fashion and history more accessible through comedy, which I love. When I read that, I was like, that's kind of our making stuff accessible through comedy. We love that. You can find KP on Instagram and TikTok at KP Deluxe and on the Styled Over Substance YouTube channel. Links will be in the show notes, so don't even worry about it. KP, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you guys for having me. I love what you guys are doing as well, so it's great to be here.
Thank you. By the way, you have the distinction of being the first ever man to be a guest on Now It's Ruined, so congratulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one accolade I can put on my bio.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to have a lot to answer for your gender. You're in the hot seat. No, I'm kidding.
It's okay. To be fair, I feel like I'll bag on them more, but that's its own thing.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's part of
that's why you're here.
Exactly. We still haven't had any white men on, so we'll save the real grilling for them. When they're here. Not for lack of trying, by the way. We've invited several, and none of them have just gotten their shit together enough to do this. So take that for what you will. Very quickly, as ever, please follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Also, this is my Colin Hanks jar moment. It was Mr. Rogers' birthday yesterday, as of the day of filming. All love to Mr. Rogers. And I think that most people know that Tom Hanks played Mr. Rogers in a film about him, but what you may not know is that Colin Hanks played him first on Drunk History. So Colin Hanks
that's
played
right.
Mr. Rogers
Oh,
before
he
Tom
actually
Hanks did. He did.
God. You really pulled that out.
I did really pull that out. And so I'm going to put a quarter in the Colin Hanks jar. We've decided in an effort to put more money in the Colin Hanks jar, which eventually will go to charity, but we have to fill it up first. I will be having Larkin spontaneously ask me to make associations between something random and Colin Hanks, like an item, a topic, whatever it may be. And because I will be associating Colin Hanks with blank, whatever the topic is, we are going to be calling this game Colin Blanks. Larkin will be able to invoke Colin Blanks about whatever random thing she decides. For example, if she had a script where she mentioned Mr. Rogers, she could go, Kate, Colin Blanks, Mr. Rogers, and my beautiful mind and weird knowledge of Colin Hanks would kick in. Finally, last piece about housekeeping. KP is just like, what is happening? Why did I agree to come here?
You do this.
Not even.
No, he's going to fit right in. I can already tell. I do have a quick boycott, though. I would like to boycott Afro Man. I don't know if either of you has been following the defamation trial. So if you don't know, Afro Man, for those of us of a certain age, know Afro Man. But,
right. We're calling out our age here.
Yes, Afro Man.
I'm familiar with Afro Man. I'm familiar with
Okay,
Afro
great.
Man, actually.
Okay, great. For those who don't know, Afro Man is the musical artist who gave us the classic song "'Cause I Got High." A bunch of cops had raided his house for basically no reason. They were searching for some illegal whatever that they did not find, and they went in with guns. They kicked his door down. They messed with a bunch of his stuff, scared his kids, all of this stuff. And his response was to make a bunch of hilarious music videos with the security camera footage he had of these cops in his house, such as Officer Pound Cake, classic, because one of the guys got distracted by a pound cake. And then these cops sued him for defamation based on the things he said in these funny music videos, such as that, one of them was a son of a bitch and that he had sex with his wife. And what happens in a defamation trial is that you have to prove that what was said is not true. So the lawyers are like, so you are not, in fact, a son of a bitch. Is that correct? It's amazing. I highly recommend looking up the trial footage. And Afro Man also conducted himself very well and defended his right to free speech, and he won. So boycott to Afro Man.
Yes.
Big up.
With that, I will hand things over to KP, but before we get into the ruining that he has for us, we of course have to hear his list of people that he wants to fight in a Denny's parking lot in hell. So KP, please.
Okay, so this was really hard because I feel like I don't have any hate in my heart for any individual. So when I was
really
thinking
lovely
about
of you.
this, I was thinking more about institutions that I don't really fuck with, and then put a face who like kind of represents that. In fashion, what I don't really like is that it's very gatekeepy, and that only certain people are allowed access into very high echelon status positions. First on my list, and this is in no order, the list is in no order, but for me, the first one is definitely Jaden Smith. I feel like him getting appointed to Christian Louboutin just didn't make any sense. It's clearly just because his dad is a super big movie star. Even when the first collection came out, it was just so underwhelming. It looked like someone who goes to fashion school's first ever project, you know? And there are people who are way more talented, who've been doing this a lot longer, who deserve that spot, and just because of nepotism, he was chosen. So that's why I'm going to choose Jaden Smith first of all.
Wow, doesn't he know karate from when he was in the Karate Kid? That's a bold.
I didn't think
Not
about
that we
that.
care.
I didn't think about that.
We never care if we're gonna win.
It's a spiritual victory, really.
There you go.
Next, and I was debating whether I wanted to talk about this just because like I'm in fashion, but Anna Wintour, because
Ooh.
editor-in-chief at Vogue, who recently, I don't know how big the story got, but there's a creator in France called Lias, who essentially is trying to democratize fashion by creating a space where fashion enjoyers, lovers can get together and essentially just watch the shows that they live stream all together.
Yeah.
Because most of us will never be on a runway. And so this allows the people who actually love the fashion to interact with each other. It builds community. I love it. When I was in France, I was at one of them. And what I'd seen recently is that Anna Wintour, at last year, I think, they had a conversation on a runway, and he told her about this thing that he's doing and even invited her to come to one of the events. She was like, oh my God, amazing idea. Just for her this year to essentially make a privatized version of that for the upper elites of fashion. Because again, she's editor-in-chief at Vogue. So the only people who will go to the Vogue watch party is people who are already in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't want to fight a woman. Just clarify. But
Listen, it's in hell.
look.
We're all ghosts at that point. It's okay. There's
Fair
a
enough.
reason. We have a lot around this.
That's legitimate
That's-
reason.
Yeah, that's messed up.
yeah, I was struggling to come up with a third one, but I guess politics have been heavy on my mind lately. So I'm just gonna say, and I'm sure a lot of people have said this when you have guests on, but Donnie T, big prez that side.
Yeah, it's gonna be
yeah.
a group situation in the parking lot around Donald, I think.
We're gonna have
It's
to have like a number, like take it. Okay, number 5 million.
For all the reasons that's happening in America, but also because I feel like he represents just the current state of politics in the world right now, which feels like it's becoming very right-wing, very conservative. And he definitely feels like the spearhead of all of that, because you see it everywhere. You see it in Europe. You see it in all sorts of places across the world. And it's kind of sucks because it feels like we've been making a lot of progress over the past couple, 10 years maybe, or for it to kind of feel like it's being backtracked. It can feel kind of defeating sometimes when it's like all these like people with so much power can do all the stuff they want to do. But let's get into the fashion history.
Yeah, we
Yes.
have power here. The three of us have mics, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about some shit. That's what we're gonna do. But I love that you have so little hate in your heart that you struggled with this assignment. That is something we've not encountered.
It's refreshing.
We're like, our list is like evergreen and continuing to grow. But yes, let's get into it. KP, please take it away and horrify us with what you have to tell us today.
Okay, cool. Well, today I'm going to talk about clothing sizing, where it comes from, how it evolved, and why it's currently an absolute mess. I'm sure you ladies have had the extremely heartbreaking experience of buying something you thought was fly, only for it to either sit like a bag of potatoes or cut off your blood circulation. But before mediums that fit like larges had the shit show that is the women's sizing system, every piece in your wardrobe actually fit you. See, before the 19th century, you couldn't just run down to Uniqlo and cop some essentials. You had to get your clothes custom made. Everything from your tunic to your underwear was either a labor of love from your family members or a work of art from a skilled tailor. For most folks, copying a new garment meant hitting up one of your loved ones with sewing skills to get you right. So, After convincing your probably overworked auntie to make you something new, she'd take your measurements and cook up new pieces just for you. Your kitchen was the fashion house, and your now pissed off auntie was the creative director. But don't expect haute couture. These clothes were pretty simple, with function being the main goal here. If you wanted frills, you have to get your money up, especially considering that even these simple garments were pretty hefty on the wallet. See, back then, fabric was pretty pricey because unlike today where powerful spinning machines can produce thousands of meters of yarn in minutes, each roll of fabric was spun and weaved by hand over weeks or even months. And with fabric being so expensive, most clothes were often constructed from simple geometric shapes like rectangles, triangles, and squares, which made cutting easier and reduced waste. Pattern making was basically a geometry exam where failing either meant no clothes or no dinner. With clothing being such a costly investment, most weren't just practical but were built to stand the test of time, not just being durable in their construction but versatile in their design. These garments had generous seam allowances that were a whole lot more than the typical 1.5 centimeters you learn to use in skirt school, as well as modular construction that allowed you to let them out, take them in, swap out the sleeves, or even entirely rebuild the bodice. Your fits were basically updated and upgraded as the weather, your body, or even fashion trends changed throughout your lifetime, unlike Shein pieces that either stop fitting or just evaporate after less than a year.
The fast fashion, man. I can't. I feel like
sucks.
it's part of the...
It really does.
Yes. And it is like part of the larger like replacement economy that is a trend now. I think it's just like...
Yeah.
I had this issue with my dishwasher, not to do with fashion, but it was like our dishwasher stopped working and the guy came in and he was like, it's cheaper to get a nicer dishwasher than replace this motor. And I was like, How is that possibly the case?
Yeah, it sucks how fashion is right now. And, I think it was really great to have clothes that would evolve with you. That's a fact I found really intriguing. If you lost weight, you could then change the whole thing to fit you better. If it got colder, you could switch from long sleeves to short sleeves. I thought that was like a really cool thing that, we've lost now. And I guess it's great to be able to go to a store and pick something off of a rack, but our clothes don't grow with us. They kind of are temporary in a way that they haven't been before, I think. Or at least past the 90s.
Yeah.
And there
so
are items that have meaning to you. Like, but both of us are wearing something because we knew you were going to be on. So we'll wear something that means something to us, or that's like...
What did you guys choose, by the way?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot to get into that. So my mother passed away last year in June, and I just was back at home cleaning out her closet. And this is one of the things I found was this light little thing. And I'm going to Coachella in a couple weeks for the first time. I've never been. And I was like, you know what? This will be perfect for Coachella. It's just a little flowery thing. I feel a little bit like I look like a woman who's like trying to seduce a pool boy, but
her hair was up before you came on, and it was very like pool boy, like but
oh, garçon, but and then Larkin was like, you look like you belong in White Lotus, and I was like, I don't know that that's a compliment, so I
don't know if that's a compliment either.
I don't think it is. And then I have a necklace on that actually Larkin's stepmom gave us both kind of like matching necklaces before she died. So dead mom stuff. That's what I've got right now.
Dead mom swag.
Hashtag dead mom swag. That's what I'm going.
That's gonna be in the tagline. I was telling Kate, I was like, I need to find a Larkin piece, and all of my pieces are vintage or stuff that I've found, and they're very Aquarius. I'm like a freaky Aquarius, lots of color. And then I told her, I was like, every single one of them is asymmetrical, like all of them. And this one's like Korean made. I don't want to get rid of these pieces, but like you just said, bodies change. There's so many that I just have held onto and I can't get rid of and would love to bring with me through the rest of my life. But if we're not bespoke anymore. So it's like you lose those if you're not sentimental and weird like me, and like, well, I'll keep that sweater for 10 more years, it'll be fine. yeah
But I mean, that's how vintage clothes come to be fair. You just have to be like, I love this so much and I'm just gonna keep it forever.
KP, what about you? What are you said you were wearing a shirt that with a graphic that you felt was appropriate.
This t-shirt basically just says that history is a set of lies agreed upon.
I love that.
I think it speaks for itself, but
it sure does.
Especially because you do a lot of history here, I thought that would be appropriate.
Love it. History is
want
a
it.
set of lies agreed upon. Perfect.
Okay, so another consequence of all this was that most folks only had about 4 to 8 pieces in rotation at one time. And with clothes being so valuable, it should be no surprise then that they even showed up in some people's wills, with the inheritor getting the fit adjusted before adding it to their wardrobe. I know personally, I'm throwing hands at the funeral for a chance at that one cool uncle's coat. Now, if you had a little extra bread from, I don't know, a tad bit of colonization, some ethically questionable labor practices maybe, you could hit up a professional tailor or seamstress. They'd pretty much do what your aunt was doing, but with more skill and resources. These artisans were out here making one-of-one bespoke pieces with all kinds of intricate details and accessories for the wealthy and influential. Which means that at one point in history, it was some poor guy's job to get dick measurements for some royal's codpiece. Around the 19th century, garment makers started to notice something. Within the community, bodies only varied a little, and because fabric drapes and stretches, you didn't need 30 measurements to make something that was a decent fit. So, early sizing experiments were conducted that used mathematical theories along with basic torso and sleeve measurements to make identical garments that worked for multiple bodies. You know, unless you were the village giant or something. This led to the emergence of small workrooms where garments were made to order, with the idea being that you got a garment that kind of fit you and was then adjusted later at home. Mass clothing production and standardized sizing only really came around for cheap workwear and military uniforms. But thanks to several global conflicts in the 1800s, ready-to-wear clothes with size designations would become the new norm. Before then, army uniforms had the same vibe, but weren't actually constructed the same. Most uniforms were still tailor-made or heavily altered for each soldier, which, I don't know about you, but free tailoring services sounds like my kind of propaganda.
You were like, I'm signing up for the army just to get the free tailoring.
I need that coat. I've got actually 5 other things. If y'all could just help me out with that, you know.
My waist is going to be so snatched, and I am going to war about it. Yes.
But the wars of the early 19th century were so massive and involved armies of such unprecedented sizes that bespoke tailoring just wasn't possible anymore. So, for the first time, militaries began mass producing standardized ready-to-wear uniforms for their soldiers to fight and die in. The earliest examples of this were seen in Europe, like in the early 1800s, when various European countries teamed up to try and jump Napoleon, and during the Crimean War of the 1850s, where Russia was the one getting jumped by some allied countries. These conflicts introduced the world to mass clothing production, but it would only really get going thanks to the American Civil War, which thanks to American exceptionalism, brought store-bought costumes to the mainstream.
The Civil War is responsible for a lot of weird shit, like stuff around the death industry too, which is really interesting. Like our weird ideas about preserving bodies also come from the Civil War, which is a different topic, but the Civil War is the whole situation.
In order to get these measurements, in order to make these sizes, first officials had to gather all their half-naked men into a room, all to collect tens of thousands of chest measurements, which when applied to statistical mathematics, allowed them to develop standardized size ranges that fit into 4 categories. Kinda like the small, medium, and large ad hoc system we use today. If you ask me, they just wanted an excuse to feel up on their subordinates without being outed. But that's just me.
I mean,
compelling.
But anyways, this was only possible thanks to the invention and development of some of the most goated innovations in fashion history, like the power loom in 1785 and the sewing machine in 1846, which completely changed how we made fabric and clothing, allowing cheaper garments to be made a lot quicker, which inevitably gave rise to industrialized clothing factories, something the Union Army had a whole lot of. This, combined with the military sizing charts, allowed manufacturers to create uniform sewing patterns, laying the groundwork for the modern sizing systems we still suffer under today. Now, while this was a massive milestone for mass clothing production, it wasn't an exact science. These guys were essentially using just chest measurements as the basis for their entire approximation of the human form. This, coupled with the fact that these uniforms needed to fit a variety of different body types relatively well, meant that most uniforms were spacious, to say the least. When the war was over, these datasets, principles, and techniques were later adapted and applied to the civilian clothing market in the 1860s throughout Europe and the US, but just for men and children. These ill-fitting clothes became extremely popular during the decade, thanks to the ease and speed of ready-to-wear styles as opposed to tailoring, because dudes will take any chance they can get to put less thought into their outfits.
So true. But if we tried to do such a thing, God help us,
then
we would be
unwettable
and therefore not people.
Unfortunately, beauty is currency as always, maybe it's a little bit less now, but it's always been the case where beauty is currency for a woman, social currency, you know?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Oof.
As time went on, clothing manufacturers got a hang of creating good-fitting, ready-made clothes, slimming the silhouettes of these store-bought suits significantly over the decades for the men. But as men continued to enjoy these quick and easy garments, women were stuck seeing their tailors anytime they wanted to do a clothing haul. It would take about 60 years, in fact, for women to finally get in on the whole sizing thing. See, during the First World War, women joined the workforce in unprecedented numbers, and so for the first time, women needed affordable and practical clothes they could cop fast. Turns out there's a lot less time to see your tailor when you turn into another cog in the capitalist machine. Needing to outfit their new labor force, clothing manufacturers started producing simple and utilitarian clothes for the ladies to work in. And so, many women started wearing uniforms with overalls and trousers, much of which were pretty oversized since manufacturers had no large-scale data on women's bodies. So, many either used scaled-down versions of their men's clothes or just eyeballed it and hoped for the best.
Lovely. Yeah, we just get the men's hand-me-down sizing situation.
Pretty much.
This is
Pretty
all,
much.
we did a bonus episode early. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Larkin.
No,
go
it's
ahead.
blowing my mind. I'm like,
No, I just keep thinking of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, which
Yes,
we did a bonus
exactly.
episode on early. And the industrialization of clothing manufacture also led to a lot of unsafe labor conditions and, hundreds of girls dying in a fire. Not hundreds, 100 something. I can't remember the number. Ugh, that's a horrible one.
Yeah.
We're always going to be like, remember this other really horrible event that happened in relation to all of this? Yay.
I mean, it's nice putting the web together, I feel like, though, as well.
oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
And that's been like one of the fun things about this podcast is like we'll do a new episode and we're like, do you remember what we talked about like 7 episodes back about this thing? Because it's all connected, baby. And we feel like conspiracy theorists sometimes.
And
with,
I
like,
am
the-
starting to feel, yeah. But it's
Yeah.
history, so it's actually,
I think it's because it's history because one thing I've also found, like when doing my content and doing the research that I do, is that I'll do a video for one thing and then I'll do a video for a completely other thing and then find out that they both intersect at the same time to like show that, oh, okay, cool, it wasn't just one thing that did this, or it wasn't only one effect that happened because of this, which I thought,
Yeah.
like, it's always super interesting finding that little web of connections.
Yeah.
It's
And
totally a
I
web.
it is. It's all connected and it's all racist and sexist and horrible.
And
That's
horrible.
what we're learning. The video I discovered you on was your one where you were talking about how like homophobia killed men's fashion in the 70s, which was fascinating, which you don't have to get into here right now, but go follow KP and go find that video because it's really fascinating.
More stuff coming soon that's probably going to get political and piss people off, but hey.
Yay.
So, after the war ended in 1918, simple styles continued, and women's ready-to-wear evolved into shapeless dresses that clothing factories could make easily, creating the barrel-like silhouette that would eventually develop into the popular La Garçon aesthetic of the Roaring Twenties. This doesn't really have anything to do with sizing, but while we're at this point, I want to give a shout out to the flapper girls of the 1920s, a subculture of punk rock women who, emboldened by their newfound independence and socioeconomic freedom, put their middle fingers up to the patriarchy and started doing pretty much everything society deemed unladylike. These ladies were out here doing shit that by today's standards are pretty tame, but back then was a full rejection of the previous Victorian generation's rigidity and tradition. They were popping out for social events without chaperones, driving whips by themselves, smoking and drinking in public, and even being more open about discussing as well as engaging in some sweaty fun time. Their rebellious makeup and shapeless dresses defined the decade, largely because it both made it easier to party at the jazz clubs and was a direct rebellion against Victorian femininity. So shout out to the flapper girls, shout out to independent women, and shout out to going against the patriarchy, really.
hell yeah.
Yes, we love all
Yes.
of this. We knew you were the perfect first man to have on this podcast, KP. This is see, speaking of everything being connected. As I'm like, but also the flapper girls cutting their hair into bobs enabled Edward Bernays to sell. Or no, that caused the hairnet crisis. The hairnets weren't selling anymore, and snoods weren't happening anymore. And so, master of propaganda Edward Bernays got hired by a hairnet company to sell more hairnets, and he essentially just made up this whole thing about how unsanitary it was to have your hair down in restaurants and how unsafe it was to have your hair down around machinery. And he is the reason that hairnets are required at so many jobs now because of his propaganda, which was a response to flapper women cutting their hair short. Everything's connected.
Literally. Wow. Okay. Gotta love propaganda.
You gotta love it.
You gotta love it.
Props to propaganda.
Something you love probably is propaganda, whether you know it or
Yeah.
not.
That was what caught us up in that episode. Is like,
That episode really fucked us up.
wait. Has it all been a trick? Does everything I love was forced upon me?
Yeah,
God,
and how he
yeah.
used fashion to manipulate, like, to get women to smoke. Lucky
Do
strikes.
either of you remember? I know that the Flapper Girls painted something on their knees. Do either of you know what that? I cannot remember what it.
I think it was also just maybe a form of rebellion, if I were to guess.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at all. I just like clothes and history. Flapper Girl, there was a trend basically where they would paint designs on their legs and their knees specifically. Again, I don't know the social implication of it, but it is really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah,
I can see it being
yeah.
like, ooh, look how short my skirt is now. You can see my knees. I'm going to decorate
That-
them, like, kind
that
of thing,
too.
you know?
Punk rock as hell. I love that.
It really is. They're super punk rock. I think
They
the fashion that they had was so against like the norm. It did become like the mainstream look for the most part.
sure. Right.
But I think that's also just like emblematic of, because the way I see it is that clothes are never just clothes. Like I'll say everything is political, but I know not everyone will agree with that. But I think clothes especially are political. The clothes that are available and the clothes that become popular are all reflections of the times. And so whereas women used to be forced into really small underwear and fashions that, either restricted breathing, didn't help with all the internal body parts that we have going on. You can't just squeeze things into such a small little
No, you
cylinder,
cannot.
I guess. You
Right.
really can't. And the flappers were everything that they did from the fashion was just a complete rejection of that. It was, okay, you love hyperfemininity with things that hold that shape the body. We're gonna have a completely androgynous style of clothing that doesn't hug our figures, that doesn't lean into this more and more. Which is interesting because in the 1930s, this wasn't part of my script, but it's just something that I noticed, was that World War I happens, 1920s happens, everyone's partying, it's like a great time, and you see that women have more freedoms and are allowed to do more things. Underwear as well as clothing gets a lot more free. Then in the 1930s, it feels to me at least that in response to seeing women finally get power and freedom, the patriarchy, because they are the ones that control the factories, that control the fashion designs, that control the things that are available to us, responded to that by then trying to put women back into a hyper feminine silhouette. Because if you look at the 1930s, that's when femininity, traditional femininity, became back in style. Obviously, the Great Depression was happening at that time. And if you watch one of my videos, I also talk about how during times of great financial strain in the country, people like to fall back into what worked. So that would tend to be traditional styles of clothing as well as different ways of running our societies. And so Great Depression happens, femininity comes back. And that was all just a tangent to say that, like, at multiple points in history, we've seen that the femininity in fashion, I guess, has kind of always been dictated by the patriarchy as a way to keep women in, this is not my words, but in their place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I was just thinking about, the 90s came back a few years ago and how Gen Z really seems to be embracing like comfort over everything else. They're like, I'm going to wear the baggy clothes and I'm going to wear baggy, comfy shoes, like heels are out, whatever. And now it's like the early 2000s are
What the
coming
hell is
back.
happening?
And it feels like the same knee-jerk thing of just like, and I know fashion is cyclical, but it just feels more sinister than that now that you're talking about that, is that I'm like, oh, now we're all supposed to be wearing low-rise jeans again and like feeling like we're fat if any amount of our belly hangs out over our like freaking low-rise jeans that we have to wear with crop tops now again. Like, what is going on? Because that era is the era that those were my formative years, and it has still like... Just
No,
like
we have
the way
not
women were
recovered.
treated.
No.
No, we have not. We have not. Our generation is not okay from that
No.
era being in
Definitely.
our face all the time. And Samantha on Sex and the City being called fat because she had like this much belly hanging over her jeans. Ugh. Feels like that's snapping back at us now, and I really hate it.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because even the like idealistic body types are also just this cyclical thing where it's like, okay, cool, now
Yep.
you can be more plus size, or now you can be, which somebody did make a point to me. They said it is cyclical from a mainstream point of view, but it's never been bad to be skinny, like throughout every single like cycle.
Yeah.
But back to sizing.
Yes.
Yes, back to sizing. Speaking of skinny, back to sizing.
As the 1920s turned into the 1930s, women's fashion softly evolved from the boyish look of the previous decade into more traditionally feminine silhouettes of the early 30s, with slender outfits meant to hug their figures and hemlines that drop back to ankle length. This trend was driven by one of the most important developments and trends of the decade, the bias cut, which basically means you cut your pattern at a 45-degree angle of the fabric's weave, creating a fluid, body-skimming garment. And even later into the decade, women's fashion stayed pretty slim when it morphed into broad, padded shoulders, nipped-in waists, and shorter A-line skirts. All that to say that while this era did produce some pretty swagged-out looks from the ladies, it posed a problem for clothing manufacturers, who were already struggling financially thanks to the Great Depression. These figure-hugging looks of the 30s made it increasingly hard for manufacturers to design and produce mass-scale clothing that fit the way the ladies liked, at least not without further alterations. Many of the women who copped clothes from mail-order catalogs ended up sending their clothes back, leaving retailers flooded in returns and profits dwindling quick. So, in desperation, the fashion industry turned to the US government, got on their knees, and started begging for help. This led to the US setting out on a mission to find a solution to the sizing problem. And in 1939, the US Department of Agriculture conducted a year-long study measuring the bodies of over 14,000 women across 7 states. Their aim was to define the average American woman, which apparently in 1939 meant thin and white, but I'm getting ahead of myself. These boys were thorough, taking over 50 measurements per lady, even going as far to measure shit like ankle height and elbow girth. Finally, they analyzed the results and concluded that just 5 measurements were enough to determine the size and shape of a woman: weight, height, as well as bust, waist, and hip girth. Which sounds great until you consider the fact that these datasets were biased towards certain demographics. To start, this was at the tail end of the Great Depression, so the nominal fee given for participation in the study attracted many women from lower income households who were more likely to be underweight, skewing the data towards a thinner body type. And, if that wasn't bad enough, although women of color did have their measurements taken, the datasets were ultimately excluded from the final statistics, meaning ultimately the data only reflected the bodies of a very specific kind of white woman.
Wow, that makes sense though. I'm also like, they all had rickets. Like,
Right? Like nobody's nourished.
well, and the fact that they went to all of these different, like, they're like, we're measuring your ankle height and all of this stuff. But then after all of that, they're like, none of that's variable enough. We'll just take these 5. Like, what?
Right.
My partner, she said that she found it's like hilarious that they took 50 measurements. They were so granular about it, and yet they still to this day have not figured that shit out. Like,
Right?
all that
Like,
effort.
Exactly.
And it's still like, we might as well be looking into outer space. They're like, we don't know, actually. That we don't know what's out there. We don't know.
Yeah. What are you?
What are you?
Ladies?
Amorphous being? I
We
don't understand.
you. You're also
They don't
different.
understand it.
That's the
You're
word.
so you're so
Literally.
different, and sometimes your butts are big, and I don't know how to handle it, and I can't.
What do I do when your waist changes over your lifetime? I don't understand. That's literally the fashion industry.
You insist on having babies and being the only gender that can do this, and that really fucks you up. And like, what? Come on.
We're not gonna have no provisions. We're just gonna let y'all figure
No.
that shit out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Buy all new shit. That's what you do. Maternity wear. Welcome to the world
Oh,
of
God, I
the
bet
things
that's a
that you will
whole
only
nother-
wear for like a few months. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, spend hundreds of dollars. Anyway,
But on top of all that, these sizing charts primarily relied on bust size to approximate other body ratios, because manufacturers assumed all women had the same idealized hourglass proportions popularized by corseted fashion from decades earlier. Which, unless you've never touched grass, you'll know is really not the case. Women are built all types of ways, in different ways and configurations.
Of course, they're like the tits. That's all that matters. Just pay attention to the tits. That's all we care
but
about.
that's, I mean,
that's-
it sounds like for the uniforms too, they were like, just get the chest.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, that's.
But I think
they
it
don't-
makes, I think for men, it's like a lot more, like, obviously men have variation, but I think the chest measurement will get you a decent fit, you know? Like,
Sure,
like,
okay, yeah.
Most men are pretty, like, pencily, I guess.
Up and down. Yeah.
But for women, it's definitely a lot more different because it's like your bust could be different from your waist, could be different from like ankle, like your wrist girth, I guess, even like it's like everybody's, but
Your
like all women are built so differently that it's like
Yeah.
to say that, okay, cool, we're just gonna use this one ratio, and instead of being like, okay, there's like 15 of them and then we're gonna work in these 15. But I guess that'd be too much
Yeah.
work.
Well,
for them.
Oh.
Of course, lazy. Well, and speaking of stuff that changes when you have children, like your bust size is like
Bust size.
chief among those things. Like everything changes. Like, oh my God, of course. I was thinking of the uniform thing too. I was like, these guys just wanted to go measure ladies. I just wanted to get in there.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta measure your ankles now, ma'am.
Ankles? Yeah.
I need your elbow real quick, please.
Yeah, I'll do the elbow measurements.
Do we have a guy on armpits?
Dibs. He called dibs.
Yeah.
Damn it, Harvey.
Harvey is definitely the weird armpit guy. Fucking Harvey.
Definitely.
Fucking Harvey over here.
Definitely.
Perv. Sorry to anyone named Harvey who may be listening.
I don't
but you're
mean
definitely an armpit perv. Now it's ruined as taking some hard stances today, and one of them is that if you're named Harvey,
There's
you're
some
a perv
stoned
for
guy listening to
armpits.
this named Harvey, and he's like,
Am I? They know. He's about to discover something about himself. He wasn't ready to learn. I don't think I've ever met a Harvey. Oh, Harvey Weinstein. Ugh.
see,
I hope you
that's
haven't
where
met
my
him.
mind went.
Pervs. I have not, thank God.
Yeah.
Harveys don't have a good track record. They really don't. Not right now.
Maybe that's why it was just right off the dome. I don't know.
Nevertheless, these datasets were analyzed and used to create the first ever women's sizing charts, with the findings being released to the public in 1941. But, to none of your surprise, the clothes these charts produced were too small for many women, foreshadowing the absolute mess that would become the female sizing system. In 1949, the Mail Order Association of America tried taking another crack at it. They enlisted the help of the National Bureau of Standards to create a new sizing standard for men, women, and children that would more accurately portray the range of bodies in the US. They conducted a study that incorporated other anthropometric findings from previous sizing experiments, such as the 1939 study we just talked about, along with a whole host of new data they got from military and children's studies. After compiling and analyzing all the data, they created the now infamous US sizing system, with numbers ranging from 8 to 42. These sizing charts were then released in 1958 as the commercial standard, and would go on to become the first federal commercial sizing standard officially recognized by the American garment industry. Unfortunately, they missed the mark yet again. See, some of the military data skewed the results towards a fitter body type, as many military mommies tended to be younger and more physically active than the general population. So, although it was more structured than anything before and worked great for men and children, it didn't account for the actual body shape diversity of America's female population. This sizing system was so unpopular and generally dismissed that they thought, fuck it, third time's a charm, right? And so, the commercial standard was modified and updated in 1970 to better accommodate for changing consumer tastes and body types. Unfortunately, these updates were mostly just cosmetic, being just minor tweaks to the existing measurements, without fundamentally rethinking how women's bodies vary. They really just made the numbers bigger and called it a day, because the US government didn't, and frankly still doesn't, understand how women's bodies work.
You don't say. And they're not interested in figuring it out.
We'll make the laws and not do any reading up on it at all. Sometimes I feel like some men haven't met women the way they interact with women.
I agree. And I've met men who you feel like have not met women, and you're like, well, you're meeting one now. Do you want to get any insight from me or educate yourself? And they're like, no.
Critical
we're not
thinking at all. But I think one thing I noticed, and this is just like, it's my own thing that I've been like grappling with lately in my own personal life, or just seeing in my personal life, is that a lot of men don't see women as people. That's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like...
Yes, you're correct.
Someone that I watch, she was like, the problem I keep facing is that people are coming at me saying, you know, you hate men. And she's like, the problem is that women hate the structure in the society that has created the patriarchy, and they hate men as a group. Men hate women on an individual basis. Like, they hate you. Like, they hate you personally and individually. We don't even hate. We're just like, stay away from me, and I don't like you. And love men
I
on
feel
an individual
unsafe.
basis. I feel
Please
unsafe.
Go away from me. Yeah.
But you, as a person, hate me individually, very specifically. And I was like, whoa, like that hit me. Because I love men, you know, like that's not what I'm saying.
As a gesture of goodwill, we have a man on our podcast right now. Look at us. We're so open-minded.
we're so with it.
We're very progressive.
We're open to different perspectives and conversations.
We are. Yeah. That is, wow. Oof, that is so true. And like the hate that they have is so personal and so like
Yeah.
mm, I was rewatching Fallout. There's a part in there where one of the women says to like the younger brother, she's like, "Oh, when regular boys get angry, they'll like pee on a wall. When clever boys like you get angry, you're lucky not to have seen where that leads." And I was just like, that's been sticking with me. There's nothing scarier than a angry clever boy. Ugh.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
And they hate you so much. Yeah, you personally. It's you.
personally,
You are
yeah.
every woman who has ever
Right,
done
right,
anything
right.
that they don't like.
It was a man who said this, but he described the act of women dating men as a masochistic experience, and I couldn't help but like feel like that was very true. It is really rough out here.
I know many women who have had this discussion. They're like, why do I have
What?
to be attracted to men?
Excuse me, coming
Yeah,
from a
you.
queer person, I'm like, why? What's wrong
Yeah,
with me?
she's
Yeah.
with a man, even
Very
though she
happily with
isn't
a man right now.
exclusively attracted to men, and she's still here. She is.
Yeah,
Why do we do this to ourselves?
you
good,
can't help how you're.
No,
how
he's
you're,
wonderful. We love him.
You can't help how you're wired. To be fair, it just
Yeah.
sucks that
Yeah.
what you have to be attracted to. The options aren't great.
Yeah, right.
What we're attracted to may very well literally kill us, and that's
Right.
that's fun for us. That's
Fatal
fun.
attraction.
Fatal
I
attraction.
did think it was interesting. Just flip that one around. Thought it was interesting that you said, like, you named a couple of government bodies that I was like, that's a thing, like the National Standards Bureau, and then like what
Yeah.
was the other one that you said in that same sentence that I was like,
The Mail Order Association of America. I think
That one.
The National Bureau of Standards has changed. It's a different name, but it's the same organization. The Mail Order Association of America, I think, is a privatized company.
That makes sense.
These new size ranges weren't mandatory standards, more suggestions, if anything. And so manufacturers started doing their own thing, which left the door open for the entrance of the single dumbest invention in women's fashion, vanity sizing. Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. See, over the decades, government size guidelines were ignored more and more, with items of clothing being marked with progressively lower numbers. And eventually, in 1983, the US government threw their hands up in defeat, and the Department of Commerce officially dropped its commercial women's sizing standard altogether. This led to all the fashion brands needing to come up with their own sizing charts, turning women's clothing shopping into a confusing guessing game that leaves you questioning your sanity. A big reason for this chaos was the proliferation of vanity sizing in the 80s, which is theorized to have started for one of two reasons. Some folks believe that labels wanted to curate their brands to particular demographics by limiting their sizing and thus building a sense of exclusivity. Others believe that brands simply just found out about the unfortunate infinite money glitch that is targeting women's self-esteems. The idea is that clothing brands started labeling their garments with lower sizes than the actual measurements to make customers feel skinnier and thus better about their purchases. Because it turns out, the fashion industry is gaslighting you harder than your toxic ex. As the decades went by, size labels kept dropping, with the trend eventually getting so ridiculous that they just ran out of numbers and started putting zeros on shit. To illustrate just how wild this got, let's look at the iconic Marilyn Monroe, who in the 40s wore a size 16. If Miss Monroe wanted to get a dress that fit the exact same in the 60s, she'd have to cop a size 12. And if she wanted that same dress today, she'd have to buy a size 6. No wonder Kim K ripped her dress. She probably thought it was for thicker women. Unfortunately, vanity sizing has persisted and is now a deeply ingrained part of women's fashion, which is why you'll likely never be the same size between stores. Hell, sometimes even in the same store. Unfortunately, we've been trained to see smaller sizes as better, opening the door to the use of ego-driven sales tactics as a way to get customers to buy more clothes. But with pushes in recent years for inclusivity, fashion brands have the issue of accommodating for all the diversity that exists across the globe. So, faced with this problem, brands have fallen into one of two camps. Exclusivity, where brands stick to their guns, narrow in on a specific demographic, and design their clothes to fit those folks perfectly. Or inclusivity, where the brand attempts to make clothes that fit a broader range of people by going beyond the standard extra small to extra large range. Which is all well and good, until you consider the fact that these garments often aren't actually designed with petite or plus size people in mind. While the clothes might technically fit, they're usually just rescaled versions of garments originally designed with average body measurements in mind, in case you're wondering why that piece doesn't fit you like it does the model on the website.
There's nothing more infuriating than just like trying on jeans or any clothes in like a department store, God help you, because you're trying on many different brands and you're like, well, I'm
Yeah.
a 6 in this one, but I'm a 10 over here. And you're just like, oh my God. And it does mess with your head.
The number of
Yeah.
times I've left stores openly weeping, like it's there.
And then you're like, I'm such a bad feminist because I'm internalized.
Why do I care?
Yeah. Beat yourself up about like how you're beating yourself up, and
But it sucks because that's the whole like point. The whole point of vanity sizing was just for them to be like, okay, cool. If you buy this and it's like a 4, whereas over there you're a 6. You see, our stuff is so much better for you. Like our stuff makes you feel better about yourself, which just then makes it a mess entirely because no brand is the same. Even sometimes the same brand, you'll be a 12 here, but a 14 here, and it's the same garment basically.
Yeah.
Right. Insidious.
And it all distracts us from how powerful we are. So we are focused on eating less and depriving our brains of nutrients so we can't fight the patriarchy. Anyway.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. I never thought about it like that, but that's such a good perspective.
Yeah, if we are all focused on getting skinnier and like starving ourselves, our brains don't work right, and we can't mobilize.
Real. But this has left many of the folks who don't fit into the fashion industry's narrow scope of acceptable body types with limited options that either fit poorly, aren't fashionable, or are either really pricey or low quality, which has pushed many of them to resort to less sustainable clothing retailers that offer wider options to the general market, like Shein and Temu. But there may still be hope for finding a good fit on the first try, and it's the most 2026 solution you could possibly think of. When it's not destroying the ecosystem and mass-producing brain rot, AI is being used to help you find the perfect fit. Companies like TrueFit and Kiwi Sizing have been developing AI algorithms that compile measurements from thousands of labels, and then after a short survey, recommend garments and sizes based on all the data. Even the retail corporation, Amazon, has gotten in on the game, developing its own sizing algorithm. Shit, at least Lex Luthor over there is helping us find some good fitting jeans in between sending pop stars to space, of course. It just wish it didn't have to take so much water.
Yeah, seriously.
Seriously.
Ugh, I hate AI. But there are uses that I'm like, okay.
There are
one
use
that I'm like,
cases
all right.
that make sense, I guess. I just
Yeah.
it could be better, and I just feel like as it's normalized throughout the world, it opens the door to people using it in ways that are not.
Right.
Like, because I also don't want to be like closed-minded and be like, okay, cool. The things I deem are valuable enough should be used for AI, because it can be valuable for different people, and different people have different use cases. But I do feel like it makes it way too normalized and allows people to use it flippantly as well. The more it's like thrown into our faces, on top of just taking artists' jobs and destroying the ecosystem and generally making
destroying
garbage
our
art.
brains.
Literally.
That's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah, I feel like ChatGPT in particular is just like, I mean, they just rolled that out by their own admission with like zero kind of thought. And we're just like, we're just going to toss that out in the universe and just see what happens and like let people use it as a therapist or whatever. Fuck it. Like there was just so little consideration of how it was going to, or I don't believe that actually. I believe they fully considered it and did not give a shit.
As long as it's going to make them money.
Like, yeah.
We'll just gather our data.
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT is free and people use it as a therapist, which is...
And your data that you put in there is public information. Like if you're asking it questions that like you've discussed with your lawyer, for example, which a lot of people do, you have now sacrificed your attorney-client privilege and confidentiality. Just so you're aware, if you put shit in ChatGPT, unless you have like an enterprise account or a paid account, it is not private.
What's the Google one's name? Not ChatGPT, but like...
Gemini?
Oh yeah, Gemini is Google, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of Claude. And I haven't vetted this, but I just read that like they had put tests to it and were like, there's a human in this room and they're going to die from gas unless you shut yourself off. And like 94% of the time they said, no, I'm not going to help because they didn't want to turn themselves off.
Skynet is coming. Everything is great. We're fine.
We're fine. And they're picking our clothes.
But they're helping us find sizing that actually works.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, to be fair, maybe they
what
just
are you
want to
using
know our
that
size
sizing for,
measurements.
Claude?
Yeah. To make a better box for me to fit in?
Yes, they're measuring our coffins.
Our matrix.
Or our matrix
matrix
pods.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. The head of Mark Zuckerberg on his android body will be
Just
putting us-
like a segue. What a douchebag.
the world's fine. Anyway, sorry. Keep going, KP. This is the podcast upon which you have come, is the doom.
That's okay. I love the conversation, actually. I just do this by myself in my room, so at least I'm not by myself.
Hey, you're not alone. If ever you find yourself again alone in your room, spiraling into doom, feel free to message us, and we'll be like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Everything is the worst. We don't have solutions. We're just here to say.
No.
Nah, that's the thing, though. Like, I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations as well because of, like, just in general person I am, but also the content I've been trying to make recently. Consciousness, it's great to be conscious, but sometimes I'm jealous of stupid people, for lack of better words. Like,
All the time.
like sometimes I wish I could
Ignorance
just
is bliss,
switch
as
my.
they say.
It really is. It really is. I wish I could just turn my brain off and be like, okay, cool, the world's
Right?
fine. I'm fine. Everything
Must
else
be
is
nice.
fine.
Like you said, you didn't even want to pick somebody to beat up in a Denny's parking lot, and so your heart's probably rendered to pieces every day. It'd be so nice not to give a shit.
But all of this is to say that you aren't the problem here. The fashion industry has literally run a psyop on us all, making us feel bad about our bodies, all to make some rich guys even richer. So, next time you're trying on 5 differently sized pants to find the perfect fit, remember that sizing and the negative emotions you might have towards it are all a social construct. One that is based on outdated and narrow views on how people are built, and is more a marketing tool than an actual shopping aid.
Snaps and applause. Love it. That was fascinating, KP. I
Thank
assume that
you.
was the end. I don't want to cut off.
Yeah, that was the
You
end.
were done. It was a great conclusion. So I was like, that's got to be.
It
that's the
felt,
mic
yes.
drop.
Thank you. Oh my God. The whole time I was just like, what are you saying to me right now?
The genesis of this idea was like, because I wear glasses, not on my videos or anything, but I need glasses. I've never had a pair of glasses that fit me the way I know that they should. And I remember one time Googling like, oh, why do my glasses always fall off my face? I found out that essentially it's because the bridge is made for, I have a wide nose because I'm a black man. It's made for a more narrow bridge. And so it always slips off, especially when I start sweating. And I know it shouldn't be like this because I know other people who just, they put it here, it stays. I started asking myself, like, why is this like this? And then it's like, oh, okay, glasses are built from European faces generally, especially when you're buying from a European or American brand. I was like, okay, cool.
Wow.
Then that made me start thinking about how growing up, I used to always talk to some like friends of mine and they would complain about how, oh, my pants don't fit because, I'm not sure if your audience is aware, but I'm from South Africa. And so they found that a lot of the pants that they would buy from stores don't fit African women, essentially. And so it's really hard to find a piece of clothing that it fits well around your waist, but also fits your entire body instead of you having to like you're going into a sausage casing, putting the fit on,
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about that and then started doing just research about sizing. And it's really crazy how it was a lack of like ignorance as well as like, I guess, intentional ignorance, because they were like, you really could find out ways that can better accommodate like a larger demographic of women. I don't even think there should be one universal sizing system because the world is so different. Like people in Asia are different to people in Africa, are different to people in America, are different to people in Europe. And so if you can just build it around certain communities, that'd be great. Unfortunately, globalization and these huge companies, these huge conglomerates have made it so that they're just going to be like, okay, cool, we have this design. We're going to ship this to Australia and Southern Africa and Southern America because their season is happening like that, without actually taking into account how like all these different demographics change and are different. That's pretty much like how I came to like finding this and how I came to researching it. And like I said, a lack, like just willful ignorance, as well as racism was definitely there.
Whiteness being the default always.
Yeah.
The thing about your glasses is we say this constantly. I feel like I shouldn't ever be surprised by anything, but I'm like, of course. Oh my God, and but of course is what we say a lot on this show. Is we're just like, why are we surprised? But yes, of course, even something like that.
Like you've been saying, it's 26. You can't figure out how to make glasses.
Even with glasses, they do have options, but those options compared to the other like more narrow options are like make it like impossible. And that's the thing. If you're someone like me who cares about fashion, who cares about aesthetics, you're like, okay, cool, I want a good looking pair of glasses. Tom Ford has a great pair. Versace has a great pair. All these brands that are recognizable, that do have good designs, have great options, but just not built for me. And then when you do try to find the
Right,
things
right.
that are built for me, it's like very little thought looks like it was put into it. Like there was like, we gotta make
Yeah.
one for the wide noses. Let's just get it out of the way.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's got to be the one.
They'll have these ones.
You wear your glasses every day, and
Right.
you want to look nice, and you want to look the way you want to be seen, and that's your style, and that's it's just ridiculous and stupid.
And
I'm
it's
sorry.
right on your face. Like it's front, it's your eyes, which is everyone is looking at that part of you. So like, of course you want to put your best foot forward on that. On my old podcast that I did before this one called The Legal Burnouts, I was talking to a woman who she was a former big law attorney, and she is a plus size woman, and she burned out and started a fashion line. She was saying kind of the same thing, where it's just like she was an attorney at a big law firm, and fashion is very important. Like the suit you're wearing is very like, people judge that when you're in those environments. And she was like, I couldn't find anything that was like flattering and good on me, because I had like 3 options of professional clothing that I could buy, and it was all fast fashion, and it would fall apart, and I was spending all of this money. I wound up spending more money on fast fashion than I would have just getting like a few nice high quality pieces, but those pieces didn't come in my size, so it was like completely unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And that was what she, started her line to combat, and she's awesome. I'll put her link in our show notes too. But yeah, that just made me think of that too. It's just like, you get the leftovers, you get what you
Yeah.
get.
You get what you get, and you'll like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, KP. This is a delight.
It's incredible. Thank you. You can tell that we're both so irritated.
I did my job.
Yeah, that's how you know.
That's what I always say. That's how you know we've
Yeah.
recorded an episode. We're mad. We're incandescent with rage, and that's the way you want.
And it brings me so much joy. That you did.
This is our weird perverse thing that
Yeah.
This is our Harvey armpit moment. We like
Don't bring Harvey back into this. God damn it.
This is what we're Harvey's about, is feeling miserable and learning horrific facts. So thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for having me on.
We're
I
honored
hope I did
that
a good job. I was like,
You
this is
did
the first time I've
did.
had an audience as well. So I wasn't no into
Dude, it was awesome.
Absolutely. No, and I had no doubt. I mean, from your videos already, obviously I reached out to you because I was like, oh, this is exactly the kind of thing we want, but in long form. So I knew you would be great with the content. And then just the questions you were asking me, like as we were prepping, I was like, oh my God, he's going to nail this. You were just so thoughtful in like everything that you were asking. And I kept telling Larkin, I was like, KP just asked me this, and he's going to be so good. And you did not disappoint. You were fantastic.
awesome,
so we
dude.
really appreciate it. And we appreciate you getting up early to be on with us.
Yes,
since we
thank
have our
you.
funky time difference. And you were a good representative, first man on the podcast. You did
Awesome.
it. You
Thank you.
acquitted yourself well.
I hope I can at least represent at least one good side.
You get to stay. We'll keep you. When we have stopped worrying about our sizes and reclaimed all of our power, we will allow you to stay.
Okay. Awesome. I just hope I have a spot in the matriarchy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. It just occurred to me that we've never really done this, but like, is there anything that like you're working on, or anything you want to shout out, or like use this space to be like, hey, I'm doing this thing, go check it out, or
Yes.
Right now, I'm just focusing on Instagram. This sizing video is going to be turned into a multiple part video for my short form content, and then a YouTube video
Awesome.
with more editing and pictures and visual references, obviously. Everything that will be like sort of long form will be styled over substance over on YouTube. And that I'm hoping to change it up more and do maybe like a weekly fashion video. Right now, the foreseeable future is just this sizing video, and then a lingerie video actually after that, or series of videos.
Nice. But we'll keep our eye out. Yeah. So I will pop all of KP's social media links into the show notes for this episode, so you can just scroll right on down from wherever you're listening or watching right now, and they will be live links, and you can find him and go follow him. Thank you again so much, KP. Thank you to all of you for listening. Tell your friends, tell your enemies as ever. And we'll see you on the next one for, I don't know, Larkin will serve something up for us.